Hello, I'm TerryDavidMulligan, and this is Mulligan's to the Podcast, music, film, food, and wine. There are some wine stories coming and food stories coming because of the coronavirus. Restaurants are having to deal with what the future looks like. Wineries are going to have to do the same thing. People who attend both. So those stories are coming. We're working on that now. Next week, I believe the podcast will be an interview with Nathaniel Rateliff, who has a new solo album out. And I will have a conversation with Zosima Oliveira, who is one of the very few female mezcal makers in all of Mexico. It's quite an interview. The translation was sensational. I hope to have my friend Roy Forbes bring his new music to the podcast so you can hear what Rock and Roy is all about. This conversation is exhilarating. It's William Prince. He's from Winnipeg, and he talks about the Winnipeg music community with a great deal of passion. He also talks about his son and his family with a great deal of passion. Unfortunately, William lost his father literally within a year of becoming a dad himself. And that informed the music on his new album called Redeemer. And there was a time when William Prince simply could not get anyone to pay attention to his music. He had the song Breathless in his back pocket for 5 years before he recorded it and somebody heard it, and then it was a hit, just like that. And that single, along with the album Earthly Days, won the Juno for Best Roots Album. And if you listen to this podcast, William talks a lot about, and actually makes a point of saying, he was happy that he won for Best Contemporary Roots Music and not an Indigenous award. He didn't want to be pigeonholed. He just wanted to be William Prince, and these are my songs, judged on songs and songs alone. He is a member of the Peguis Nation. Actually, his name, we're going to talk about his name and how he came to become William Prince. This weekend, he is doing 3 nights in a row at the infamous Winnipeg East Cultural Center. And then he sets off in Berlin and London and Dublin. And he moves throughout Europe, then takes his music across America, and then finally starts to do some dates in Canada in April. He's going to be a very busy guy. And he talks about that as well. Here's a conversation with an amazing artist. It's just a voice like no other and a songwriter to match the voice. Here's an interview with William Prince. I'm TerryDavidMulligan. This is Mulligan's Stew. William Prince is on the line. William, do you have a connection with CKUA? Do you know about this amazing network in Alberta?
I do. I'm a big fan of Alison Brock's show, and I'm friends with Leroy Stagger, and they play pretty much all my friends from out that way. You know, I'm a huge Marielle Buckley fan, so anytime I'm in Alberta, it's cool because everybody listens to CKUA out there, and my partner's from just south of Calgary as well, so lots of connection to
lots of connection. That's fantastic. I have a fascination with what the hell is going on in Winnipeg right now, because there's some amazing music being made in Winnipeg. I mean, music is cyclical. It comes around, it goes around, it comes around. Right now, is there a spark in Winnipeg, or am I just imagining that?
This has definitely been Winnipeg's time for the last little while. You know, I go down to the Times Changed whenever I can when I'm home, and you just kind of see the whole range of talent. And I think of like Begonia and Taylor Jansen and just, you know, strong females really taking charge from this area, and the city embracing my music the way it has. And, you know, there's something special about this place. We talk about it all the time and say it's the weather or something that keeps you in and writing. I think it's just because everybody here is striving so hard to do their best that the talent around you elevates your own kind of performance. And so from that, we get a pool of very talented, hardworking artists. And that's the special thing going on.
William, do you think because of the location, as always, Winnipeg is in the middle of this huge country, that they have to try just that much harder to get people's attention in Toronto and Vancouver?
Yeah, those places have always been hailed as the hubs, much like a Nashville or something. But I don't think it matters where you live, really. If you can't write a song, in your hometown or whatever, and moving to a larger metropolis, I don't think is going to magically change that. Winnipeggers are proud of where we're from. We're the heart of the continent. We're a nice, kind of a T of an intersection. When you go left, you go out to Vancouver, you go west, or you go to the East Coast when you take a right, or you go straight down to, Minneapolis and Nashville. All those spots, we're kind of the perfect spot. It's not overwhelming plane travel to get places. I couldn't imagine doing a Vancouver to Toronto all the time. Trying to make the connections that I've made now. So I love being in Winnipeg. My son lives here, so I'll always live here. I love the community, and it's affordable. You can afford to live in a decent place while maintaining your art, and even if it's shared with some other ambition, you're supported by a very special community of people who just understand, non-judging, and I'm part of a specifically caring or collective. The folk community is very much this extensive hand of roots that are looking to support each other, and the house show culture and stuff. So, yeah, all things combined, it's a special place here.
Do you cross paths with the Small Glories or even someone like the Landreth brothers?
Oh yes, yeah. Up until Dave Landreth had his baby, his wife was doing all my graphic design for the past 2 years, and Joey and I have spent a bunch of time, at different festivals, different shows. Their dad, Wally Landreth, is the one who sets up all my guitars and does all my maintaining and stuff. And J.D. Edwards from the Small Glories just happens to be one of my favorite performers ever. So that's the thing about the community is we're all fans of each other. We're all supporters of each other. And when one of us finds success, it's like all of us kind of inch, a little bit forward towards that legitimacy that might not be there from being a Toronto or a Vancouver hotspot as the Americans look up and figure where to go. There's a reason these tours only really stop in Toronto and places like that. A misconception, I'd say, because the principle of writing good songs and good music can come from anywhere, and Winnipeg is a shining example of that.
You're going to do 3 nights at the West End Community Center. 3 nights, man. That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah, West End Cultural Center has been my home for some time now. I started off there taking in some of the first shows I'd ever really seen on a smaller scale, and that's where I learned that it's everyday people that do this, that strive for greatness in music. And that's where I saw Scott Nolan open for Serena Ryder, and really changed my perception on everything, that I could do this too. I could try. And from there, the West End Cultural Center underwent some renovations, made it an even bigger, more beautiful venue. It's hailed as the favorite venue in Winnipeg time and time again, and is constantly exploring its options to bring in singer-songwriters of all size from everywhere. So it's a great place. It's always been there for me, and now we have 3 shows happening there.
3 shows
over the coming weekend.
Fantastic.
So I'm excited.
You won the Juno last time out, and I wonder what effect you thought it might have on your career, and what effect, in fact, it did have on your career.
Yeah, I won the Juno for Earthly Days, my first record, and it was a thing that still, I sit and ponder about it sometimes. It's almost terrifying to think, would any of this exist if it didn't happen, But I feel before any of those accolades came my way, I was on a I was on a path to be heard or be seen in whichever regard it was, and the Juno was definitely a huge help in terms of visibility and getting to perform the in memoriam for Leonard Cohen at the award ceremony itself, and that just having your name heard and where you're from and your intentions, and then getting to speak to everybody after you win is great. It kind of really brings everybody on board to what you're doing, and I've made the most of leaving impressions on people with a short amount of time. That's all we really have is the elevator pitch with most people, and if you're lucky enough to sing songs and capture their attention long enough to have them come to your side, then that's great. So I love winning the Juno. I think now it's very affirming in just the craft itself, because I was nominated for Contemporary Roots, and the songs were being judged solely on their merit as pieces of art, and I guess it went in my favor this time around. So I'm forever thankful.
And William, when Breathless came about, did you know you had some nugget there?
Oh, truthfully, no. Breathless stayed buried for quite some time, and it's one of the first songs I ever wrote. And when I played Breathless for the In Memoriam, that's what led to the record deal with Glassnote Records in the States. And then we started working down to Nashville a little bit, and we recut Breathless for the Earthly Days album, for which I won, and repackaged new artwork, all that thing, and stamped its place in time in 2018. But I'd been traveling with that album since 2015.
Yeah.
And it was like Canada was behind me for the first 2 years of the journey, and then when that happened, when we won the Juno, it was an opportunity to take it to the world stage in America through Daniel Glass, and it landed on BBC, and we went over there and did some touring for some time, and these little avenues of finding success, little pockets of touring and getting the word out there really helped, and it eventually led to new management and a deal with Six Shooter Records in Canada. And now I feel like both sides of the border are looked after. I feel like there are the best people are looking after music and what I'm trying to do, and that's what's helping guide this path that we're on.
So, William, what does it feel now like the possibilities are? Is there a horizon?
It feels like a lot of things are opening up in a way. I always believed that if you're good at something, you'll tell everybody, and if you're great at something, they'll tell you. And that's where I feel I'm headed now. That slowly the appreciation and excitement for what I do is growing, and from that, I feel like, geez, some of the hardest work is done. Like, you're on the radar of the right people, and that's definitely motivating, a boost to keep going and to keep being consistent is now the task at hand. It's no longer a first impression surprise reveal of this baritone singer who has a lot of heavy feelings and discusses things in a serious tone. Like, people have come to expect that. So it challenges me to keep writing the best music and best words that I have yet. And all the while, still, there are people discovering the Earthly Days record and that song Breathless. And when they look it up in Wikipedia, that it's won some awards, like, this guy is legit. Like, it just, all things like that help the cause. And I feel like with all those things in play, like, it's just a matter of when and not if, really, anymore. That's the thought process that's changed over time. Like, I'm in no rush to get anywhere else. Where I'm the happiest and most comfortable I've been with my music career right now, and I'm here to be a part of it and try and live it and take it in, be present in it, and enjoy these things before this phase passes. And
attaboy.
before putting out a record becomes just a casual every year kind of thing. I'm still really enjoying all of it, the gradual ascension.
I wrote two things down, William. I wrote Reliever, which is the name of the new release. And then I wrote underneath it, I wrote Fatherhood. And then below that, I wrote, what changes did you make in your approach to songwriting and recording between Earthy Days and Reliever? But I'm thinking that maybe the key there might be the word fatherhood. Did you become a father between those two albums?
I did, yes.
Well, there's something that would affect your songwriting and your outlook.
Yeah, definitely. I've always had this kind of family lens on everything. I appreciate the family I grew up with, and they've been at the kind of core of everything. Fatherhood and parenthood in general has a huge part to do with the album. My dad passed away just a couple months before the first album came out, and in the next year I became a dad myself, and the contrast between those, losing your dad and becoming a dad, and watching my son feeling these new feelings, feeling like there's a second soul in the world of yourself, that's a feeling I never had, and you can only really experience when you do become a parent of some sort, and
Where do we find those feelings in one of these songs here? I mean, I see the obvious in Old Souls, but I'm thinking, is there something in Lighthouse or Great Wide Open or The Spark that...
Yeah, Old Souls isn't actually particularly that song. There's a section I like. I like the song Wasted. That's just about my son, hopefully finding something he loves to do with his life. And then I think of songs like That's All I'll Ever Become. That's a big song that has to do with my parenthood and how our children, and once you see them, you wish you could be with them forever and help them along this journey. But it's kind of impossible. At some point, you gotta let them go. I'm not in a place right now. I'm a part of my son's life all the time, and I'm a helicopter dad of care. Watch yourself, and I just want to be here and talk to you and be around you. And Lighthouse paints a bit of a picture. The traveling, the guy, the person at sea while you wait for your loved ones, and how this beacon of hope, a child, stands like a lighthouse waiting for you to come back to them. And so, yeah, there's definitely the impact of fatherhood, parenthood of any kind finds its way onto this album a bunch. And like being a dad now, my son is one of the greatest relievers in my life when I'm tired or wondering where and when we're going and all those things. And it's been weeks on the road, and you get to come home for a couple of days to see him and be with him. It just it definitely fills up the reservoir tank of what you need to stay strong out there, and eases everything. Reminds me exactly why I'm doing all this and why I'm working so hard.
Thank you, man. Thank you for sharing that and opening up. You spoke of your family, William. I went back and I wanted to. My father came from Dauphin, Manitoba, so I know some of the story. He was a lacrosse player who ended up being brought to the coast to play lacrosse and hockey, and got badly banged up, as you did in those days, because the protection wasn't so good. But the thing that he and I did was toss a lacrosse ball. Loved tossing a lacrosse ball. I was reading about Chief Peguis and how in the 1800s he converted to Catholicism, and his baptized name was William King, and his children called him William Prince. Is that where your name came from?
Well, William King met Queen Victoria, and he asked her, what are your sons called? And she said, well, by title, my sons are princes, and Chief Peguis was dubbed King of the Indians at the time, and that's where William King came from when he converted to Christianity. He wanted to live a life with one wife. At the time, he had 7 wives, and the wife that he ended up staying with happened to be my great-great-grandmother, and a few times removed or generations. And that branch of the family became the line of hereditary chiefs of the reserve of Peguis, where I grew up and where my family still lives. And so from that William King name came the surname, the English, I guess, converted surname of Princes. So all my sons henceforth shall be known as Princes was the quote to be taken from there. So yeah, a bit of a, he was an indigenous royal himself. I don't know. I carry a big piece of him with me. It was funny at the time because I didn't live in Peguis my entire life. I moved there in grade 5, and of all places for your indigeneity to be challenged by people and kids at school and everything. Oh, this guy talks differently. He was raised in a different town and moved to this reserve a little later in life, and I was essentially declared an outsider on the reserve that my grandfather started. And over time, things became normal again, and my family reintegrated into the community, and suddenly there was a bit of an acceptance there towards my graduation, and now things are great. People from there are proud of me and things that I've done out here. And the inverse of that is that I'm trying to do good work out here in the world to inspire those youth that maybe don't have as solid a background or support system that I did. My parents didn't drink. My parents are very smart and educated and did their best to give us all that they could in that time, and instilled this model of how to be successful, how to be responsible, how to be a good person and take care of those you care about. And that all plays into the songwriting. You can only sing about what you know and what you love. And it's like I've been saying lately, you can't fake your accent. It's the accent you grow up with. I grew up listening to the great singers, the Cash and Christopherson and all those guys, and my mom's taste in music, Whitney Houston and all those greats, and that all stems from that place.
And I understand that the Peguis Nation is a mix of Ojibwe and Plains Cree. Do you lean on one side or the other? Have you followed back that trail?
Yeah, I have both. I think most people are a bit of each of those two designations, Cree and Ojibwe. There's that's the nation that comes from the reserve. My dad was a Cree man, and my mom is actually from Churchill. So she never knew her father, but there's known, I guess, Inuit ties to her upbringing as well.
By the way, just for your information, if you Google your name and then you hit news, because you can find news stories, etc. on you. Yeah. What I'm getting is Prince William, British royalty. Do you think that Prince William is getting William Prince emails and news reports on his mail?
Oh boy, I don't know. Maybe he gets the odd news alert or something. But yeah, that's been a common thing throughout my life. Back in the days. That's why for the longest time I was William Prince Music, because any Googling of any kind just brings up pictures of the royal family. And it's neat too, going back to my grandfathers. There was a William Prince before me as one of my grandfathers, one of the chiefs. So all my names, William, Henry, George, very English names, all come from my grandfathers who were former chiefs of the reserve.
Well, so by the way, I did ask the question, but I don't know because we got carried away with fatherhood, but the changes between
the recording.
Yeah, the recordings. Everything sort of opened up. You could just feel it. Your heart, your soul, everything opened up into the songs. They became bigger. You expressed yourself. Was it any easier writing them? And what did it feel like when you finally finished, when you did that last note on the last song?
I think confidence is the biggest difference now. Because before, you have no base for what this is. I was trying for a number of years to get an album recorded and ran into all sorts of hardship trying to make it happen, and it just didn't. And it was very disappointing and discouraging at the time. And so when I finally got to work with Scott Nolan, and I managed to get the money together to actually make an album, there was a lot of, well, this feels like I got one shot at this. I can't, if this doesn't work in some way, it doesn't at least get the ball rolling now, it's going to feel, I don't know, like I got more work to do, all those things. But it was more in the vein of like, I hope nobody minds that I'm making this album, and to find any love whatsoever for it was the biggest surprise out of anything. How people took to it and found it refreshing. And I owe a lot of that to Scott in the studio and the way we capture things at the song shop where we record. And the thing I wanted to keep more of that, because I got so comfortable in that studio that when it came time to start thinking of the second one, the option was there to go do the entire thing somewhere else. But I said, I'm just finding my comfort zone over here, and Scott and I have something special when it comes to collaborating and allowing the music to breathe and getting out of the way of the songs and serving the songs selflessly, and I wanted to go back. So the method stayed the same pretty much. I just, I was a little more sure-footed in the songs themselves the second time around, and maybe that's what you're hearing now.
Yep. That's what it is. It's confidence, it's growth, it's maturity, it's all those things. Well, I also noticed one more thing, and I see this a lot. There are references to the ocean and the shore in the lyrics. A lighthouse, for example. But you're kind of landlocked where you are. I mean, how often do you get to a shore? How often do you spend time on those beaches?
It's all in the mind, I am a sailor. When I am provinces or states or countries removed from my son, it can be the same apprehension as a sailor who's, 20 hours out into the ocean, and should something happen that you need to see them, there's always kind of that, you just have to wait to get back, So a lot of that imagery just comes from the helplessness I envisioned of, a sailor at sea while their loved ones are still on the land, and I think being a dad, that sailor imagery really comes into play. I was listening to Sturgill Simpson's The Sailor's Guide to Earth a lot in 2016, right around the time of my son's birth, and his explorations into fatherhood. He painted a whole record with that theme, and I thought of the lighthouse concept and more the loneliness of a lighthouse, where the lighthouse stays put while I go out and live all these adventures and come back and tell you about them and everything. There was a lot of battling, internal struggle with, is that selfish? Am I doing the most selfish thing ever? I say I would do anything for my children. I miss my son all the time. Am I being selfish out here chasing this kind of intangible dream? And, now that we're here in a place where we are finding success, that's going to provide a future for my son and us as a whole. That's worth the time now when he was a baby, so that I can be here when it comes time to, let's go to the hockey game. Let's go do our Timbit soccer or whatever it's going to be. Your extracurriculars. Your dad laid the groundwork.
And William, but what if he wants to pick up a guitar? You're all right with that?
Oh, of course. Nothing I'd ever push on him. My dad had a guitar around the house, and it was just a natural curiosity. And I think if he started to show interest in that, I would at least be I'd be useful to him. Of all the things I've learned, the people I know now, the connections, I could maybe save him some hardship and the lessons I've learned from my peers and mentors, the people I care about. And I feel like I belong, or I've at least made somewhat of an impression in this musical world, especially in Canada. And should he choose to be a musician, my thing would be, I'm gonna show you how to get your guitar set up right and where to place the mics properly and how to explore your songwriting in a way that's different. So I'm here for anything he chooses to be.
I think frankly, the value, it's hard for you to maybe judge it now because you're being you. You're not standing back and looking at you as a third person. But your effect on young Indigenous, First Nations, Aboriginal kids across this country, well, wherever you go, frankly, is immeasurable. It's just huge to be a role model.
Yeah, I like that can be done without having to put an asterisk next to my thing.
Yep.
Like if I can be a positive role model that way, then that's a great thing. I've always just wanted to be a great singer-songwriter, and from that I would have whatever positive effect I can have.
Well, thank you for this time. I mean,
yes, thanks to you.
I love this, and have yourself a great 3 nights at the Culch, and that world tour. As far away as you get from home, you take home with you, so you're good.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for this.
I'm TerryDavidMulligan. This is Mulligan Stew on the CKUA Radio Network. He is William Prince. William Prince. The name of his album is Reliever. It's his second album. Imagine what the third and fourth and fifth are going to sound like. You may have seen him on CBS Saturday Morning, which is a great showcase for any artist. Rolling Stone magazine just wrote an article on him. He's well on his way. Keep an eye on William Prince. He's going to make some serious music now and much later. All the details on William Prince can be found at mulliganstew.ca. That's the home base of Mulligan Stew Radio, Mulligan Stew Podcast, and Tasting Room Radio. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with Nathaniel Rateliff. Have a germ-free week.